Music fans, today we are going to listen to and discuss a song by one of my favorite bands, a British band called Blur. You might know them from the Song 2 that everybody calls Woohoo. Well, they have a new album coming out called The Ballad of Darren on July 21st, 2023. So we're going to sample one of their new singles called The Narcissist. Listen to it. I'm going to give my perspective as a lifetime Blur fan, as a songwriter and guitar player. So prepare yourself. Let's take a listen. This is Coffee with Vandarth. But first, a snack. This is my first time hearing this song, so grab your tea, grab your coffee, beer, whatever it is you drink. Let's sit back and listen to the track. This is The Narcissist.
Looked in the mirror, so many people standing there. I walked towards them, into the floodlights. I heard no echo, there was distortion everywhere. I felt my ego, I felt Roboto standing there. Found my transcendence, it played in mono painted blue. You were the hero, I was the dark room. Shine a light in your eye. You probably shine it back on me, but I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I'll heed the sign. I saw the solstice, service station on the road. I took the acid under the white horses. My heart it quicker, I could not tear myself away. Became addiction. If you see darkness, look away. I'm a shining light in your eyes. Probably shine it back on me, but I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I'll heed the signs. Oh glorious world, oh potent wave, valleys gone wild. Connect us to love and keep us peaceful for a while. I'm a shining light in your eye. You probably shine it back on me, but I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I'll heed the sign. I'm a shining light in your eye. Probably shine it back on me, but I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I'll heed the signs. I won't fall this time. With Godspeed, I'll heed the signs.
That's a pretty good ballad. Blur is really interesting because they've had to adapt from a Britpop sound that is fun, but maybe in this age, it might be seen as a little bit cheesy, some of their early 90s stuff. I still love it. But they kind of moved into a more mature sound, a more like adult rock sound. And that stuff around self-titled, around the 90s, I mean, that's the stuff, late 90s is when I really started to love Blur. And unfortunately, that correlates with the time that Damon started to get depressed, like by the album 13. So they've kind of had an interesting journey, but at that point in Damon's songwriting, his music became more and more introspective. And I really connected with that because it wasn't just this fun, goofy, like novelty music like they started out making. It was deep and rich, and there was stuff to think about. On a guitarist side, I've always loved their tone. I mean, Graham Coxon, he generally uses a Telecaster. I love that sound. You don't get to hear it scream, and you don't get to hear that dirty, gritty, sweet neck Telecaster tone in this song. Maybe a little at the end. You probably saw me smiling a little bit in my reaction because as the song started to wrap up, I start to hear guitar noise. And that's something that Graham is kind of known for. He just loves to make these nasty sounds and work them into a song. So it's always cool to hear that. The first time I heard that, I was listening to the song Country Sad Ballad Man on their self-titled album, I believe. You might have to fact check this, but I believe that came out in 1997. And he gave this weird, noisy solo in the middle of the song, and then towards the end of the song, it's a beautiful ballad, and he's just making ridiculous noise with his guitar. And at the time I thought, what is he doing? Like, he's ruining the song. He's killing it. He's destroying what was like a really cool, chill, wonderful, relaxing driving ballad. But as I listened to it a few more times, I realized that he's actually a genius. Like, no one else has done this, and I realized once I understood what he was going for, making the song a little bit gnarly, nobody else makes ballads like that. What he was doing was truly unique, and it was artistry. So I began to love his sound, his approach, and just the crazy stuff that he does on guitar. This song, you don't get as much of that, but it's there. And maybe a little bit more so than on their last album, Magic Whip, which I liked, but it was a very toned down, mellow album for Blur that didn't have that signature British rock band sound. And from the two songs I've heard, this one, and they have another song out, I forget what it's called, but between those two songs, my guess is that this new album, The Ballad of Darren, is going to bring a little bit of a return to that rock band in a studio sound. A little bit of extra reverb there to make it sound live, make it sound, British bands often go for a little bit more reverb, I feel like, than American bands. And I like that a lot. I've always liked that about their sound. So, I am a lifetime Blur fan. I first got into Blur on Parklife, their third album from 1994. My favorite year in all of music. And that album had a song on it that I just loved. It's not the one you would expect. There's some radio hits on there, Boys and Girls, Tracy Jacks, but the one I loved was called This Is a Low. That was kind of my introduction to Blur because my brother gave me a mixtape of rock music, and that song was on there, and the harmonies and the mood just blew my mind. Now that song is a little bit more epic in the way it's shaped and the way it builds. The harmonies are much bigger. However, I feel like this new song, The Narcissist, is true to that early Blur sound, that 1994 Parklife. That's like the moment that they started to become more serious. And I guess the next album was a little bit of... The Great Escape was a little bit more like Modern Life is Rubbish. But then that mature sound that they found on Parklife came back with a vengeance, with like an American rock and roll twist, and that art noise experimental sound. That is what you found, this melting pot of those different sounds on their self-titled album that just kind of began to grow. So now here we are, 2023, we have a very mature, deeper, richer Blur band, which I love. And the lyrics here are really interesting. I mean, there was a line early in the beginning where he was like expecting a rebuttal or something. And I'm not totally sure what the song is about. I intentionally went into the song having not heard it before, so you could get my initial reactions and how I saw this song over in the history of the band. But it's really interesting. I don't know what it's about, but you know, being a rock star, I'm sure you have to struggle with narcissism and depression because the spotlight is on you. There's so much pressure on you. There's so many people feeding your ego, and you have to balance confidence and not let it go too far into narcissism. I hear some lyrics about addiction in here, and I heard a line that stuck out to me in maybe the last verse or bridge. Something about learning to love and make peace with each other. So I found this to be, oh, this sounds like a really mature topic, like things we go through, you know, dealing with your ego and having to learn to balance it and make peace with the relationships around you. I feel like Damon always goes to these deep places like that ever since that self-titled album. And I love that. So I'm probably going to read about this song, try to find some interviews and see what it's really about. But to me, I already want to go back and listen and kind of explore and contemplate the lyrics, see what's there, see what I see in the song, and try to figure out what Damon meant when he wrote this song. So, as a guitar player, it's a very simple song, but it's melodic. It has some melodic hooks. I think that's smart. I mean, on a ballad, you don't need to go crazy, but Graham put enough of his touch into this song to give it the Blur sound and still be simple and not go overboard. So I am super excited. I just found out there was a new Blur album coming out. And I mean, they are one of the top 10 bands that most influenced my songwriting. I don't have a Telecaster yet, but I've got that on my list as one of my next guitars to grab. And it's because of them. It's because of the tones I hear in their music when they use that neck tone and crank that distortion. I just love that sound they came up with. So if you have only heard song 2, that rock ballad, that rock anthem that yells woohoo, I highly recommend you check out the rest of their discography. I would say definitely check out this new album, see where they're at now, but definitely go back, and probably their biggest albums are Park Life and that self-titled album. Check those out, see what you think. Magic Whip is worth listening to for sure. There's some really deep cuts on there too. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you're going to pick up the new album, if you want to hear more Blur, and I'm going to make a few more of these reaction videos to bands I love and bands that I know the names of, but I don't know any of their songs. So look out for those soon on my channel. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And hey, let's have some more coffee or whatever it is and have a listening party together. See you next time. But first, a snack. Well, that didn't work.